All right, chapter 14. Up until now, we've seen Jesus do some amazing things. He can control the weather, he can control demons, he can control sickness. Um, and then now we see a story about him feeding the 5,000. And when I grew up as a kid, growing to Sunday school lessons and stuff like that, when they would talk about this story, they would talk about how um, the point, the take home point, is that we should share our stuff with other people. And when we do, God will multiply it. And maybe that's true, but that's not the point in this passage. The point of this passage is to teach us about who Jesus is, to show us more about his authority and his power. And so Jesus can take anything and multiply it, and it shows that he is no mere man. He's not just a prophet or a good teacher, because a good teacher can't do what Jesus just did. No, Jesus is the God-man, fully God, fully man. And so he has the authority to teach. And you should listen to what he says, because it's God teaching you and telling you more about who he is and what you should do. Now, the bit of encouragement that I'd like to share with you is that the disciples had a front row seat to see this. And so they'd already seen countless miracles. They'd even taken part in them. He'd already controlled the weather and cast out demons, all these things. And then, as they're in the waves, or in the boat, in the waves, and Jesus is walking out to them, they're still afraid. And so Jesus tells them, don't be afraid. Have courage. And then Peter gets out of the boat, starts walking to Jesus, and then he doubts, and he fears, and he starts to not believe, and then he starts to sink. And so what does Jesus do? He reaches out and saves him. And then he says, why did you doubt, O you of little faith? And so I just want to say two things. One, Jesus had compassion on Peter and his doubts and his fears. He didn't just cast him away or let him sink because he didn't believe and didn't trust. He helps him. Now, he corrects them and he helps him to see, continue to see who he is, but he doesn't just throw him away. And so the times that you have doubted, the times that you have failed to trust the way that you should, God will have the same compassion on you if you reach out to him through Christ. And that is, I don't know about you, but that is a great encouragement to me, because all I got to do is look back 24 hours, and every single day of my life I have failed in some way. And I see in the words that we just read in this chapter a God who will have compassion on me and accept me even though I am weak. The second thing and the last thing I want to say is that I think there's an argument here about how God asks us to believe. And I know I've said this before, but it is never about blind faith. It is never going against the evidence. Jesus, when he talks to Peter, says, why did you doubt? Remember, Peter has seen a handful of evidences of who Jesus is. He's already seen it. So Jesus has demonstrated by giving him proof of his authority. And so I think Jesus gives that to us so that we will then believe. And so for those out there that think that faith is against reason, that is not correct. Or that it's has nothing to do with evidence or facts, that is not correct. God always gives us some type of evidence that we can test out, that we can look at, that we can examine before he asked us to drop everything and follow him. And just a reminder that Peter, the rock, who becomes an awesome leader in the church is the same Peter that doubted. The same Peter that later on, you'll see, ended up denying Jesus. Yet God still used him as a great example of somebody who follows Christ. So let that be an encouragement for you today as you see the fears, the failures, and the doubts in your life.